God bless everyone today. 1 Samuel chapter 17. We're looking at the story of Goliath and David. And most people know this very well. We see that the armies now, brothers, in this chapter have the Philistines on one hill, the Israelites on another, and a valley in between them. And for 40 days, we know 40 is a time of testing, 40 is a time of trials. And we have this giant of a man, a cubit and a span, 9'9", called Goliath, a warrior, a man who has armour on that weighs so much weight. This man is a beast. He's head and shoulders above everyone else. He's a warrior. And he comes out defiling the armies of God, taunting the people of God. Send me someone out. Send me someone to fight. And he has them struck with fear. We see that, when the Philistines say Saul and all the Israelites are dismayed and terrified, they're full of fear. And they keep doing this. And David, when he comes to give him the roasted grain and the bread that his father Jesse has sent him to take him into the battlefield, as the Israelites and the Philistines are drawing up the battle lines, David leaves his things and he runs to the battle line and asks his brothers how they are. And as he's talking to them, Goliath steps out again. Steps out from the lines and shouts his usual defiance. And David saw the Israelites, that they fled in great fear. See, up until this point, brothers, fear has defeated the people of God. Goliath's defeated the Israelites on fear alone. There's been no battle. He hasn't had to do anything yet. And what we need to understand this, brothers, is fear. It keeps us from going into battle. They're running away. They're feared. They're terrified. They're not trusting in God. They haven't got their faith. They're not believing. But they've allowed fear to defeat them. A tactic that the enemy uses. And let me tell you something, brothers. Fear will stop me and you from being effective in church and outside of church. Fear will stop us from going out onto the streets and telling people about the Lord. Fear will stop you from serving God in the church. Fear will stop you from serving God if you allow it to. Goliath defeated the Israelites on fear alone. And David can see this. David is not like these men. Remember, the Bible says we've not been given a spirit of fear. David has been full of the Spirit of God. And the Bible says that David asks us what will be done for the man who kills him. And the men tell him that he wouldn't pay tax, that he would be given wealth, he would be given his daughter. And I don't believe David did that for them things. This battle was won for the victory of the Lord. But when David's older brother Eliab heard him, he began to argue with him and said, "You've just come here to watch." And what David said to his brother was overheard, reported to Saul, and Saul called for him. And when David come to Saul, you can picture now, they're on the battle line. Goliath's coming out. He keeps taunting the armies of Israel. Saul and his army are in fear. And David says to him, "Let no one lose out on account of the Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." This is a man who is faithful, a man who knows if God is for him, then who can be against him? This is a man who has noticed that the people of God have lost heart because of fear. They've already lost the battle. And Saul looks and says, "You're not able to go out against the Philistine. You're only a young man." And he has been a warrior from his youth. Saul is looking at the outward appearance. Saul is looking at David compared to Goliath. And David replies to him. See, David remembers God's power. David remembers it's God who has rescued him. David's training as a shepherd has prepared him for this day. And he said to Saul, "Your servant's been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and the uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them. Because he has defiled the armies of the living God, the Lord take notice of this, brothers, the Lord who rescued me from the paw of the bear and the lion will rescue me from the hand of the Philistine. David is a man who remembers God's power. David is a man who knows that God will have the victory, that it's God who will rescue his people. You know, just like, you know, David would protect the sheep from the bear and the lion. Here, he's protecting the sheep, the people of God. He's coming to their rescue. He rescued the sheep from the bear and the lion. Now he's going to rescue the sheep from Goliath. And David is a man of faith. He remembers the power of God. He remembers that it's God who has delivered him. It's God who has rescued him. And it's God who will do the same. He's a man who knows for the battle is the Lord's. He knows the battle is an ease, but he knows if he steps out in faith and trusts as God, God will do the rest. See, Saul looks at him as a young boy and doubts his ability. And he offers him his armour. Here, take me armour, he said. But we see that David didn't need the armour of Saul, because David had the armour of God. David was in the power and filled with the power and the Spirit of God. And the Bible says he goes to a stream, gets 5 smooth stones, gets his sling, and approaches Goliath. This is a man of faith. He stood now, this little boy, probably 17, 18, however old he was, against this giant of a man. This giant of a man. His chances of defeating this man to everyone else, you know, it just hasn't got a chance. But he knows that if God is for us, then who can be against us? He knows what is impossible for man is possible with God. He knows that nothing is too hard for the Lord. He knows that the battle belongs to the Lord. And when he approaches Goliath, Goliath looks at him and says, am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? Come here, and I'll give you flesh to the birds and the wild animals. Listen to David's reply. David said to Goliath, you come against me with your sword and your spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. The God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defiled this day, the Lord will deliver you to my hands, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. And everybody will know in Israel that God is in Israel. And all those gathered here will know it's not by a sword or a spear that the Lord saves. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And the Bible says he walks out, gets his stone, and he slings it, and it hits David. It hits Goliath in the forehead, sinks into his forehead and defeats him. You see, brothers, we will come against battles in our life. We will come against giants in our life. But we need to remember to come against whatever we face in the name of the Lord. Because if God is for us, then who can be against us? The victory belongs to the Lord. The battle belongs to the Lord. And we just need to have the faith to stand up to the giants in our life and to trust in God. See, God had already delivered David from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear. And David is looking at, you know, his past victories and what he's faced and what he's gone through, and how God has brought him, you know, victory over the lion and rescued him, and victory over the bear and rescued him. And David realizes that God will do the same with Goliath. He's no different. It's just another giant in his life. It's just another battle. But he knows that the battle belongs to the Lord. He knows it's just another giant, just another thing within his life. But he knows that God will get him through it. And today, brothers, maybe you're facing a giant. Maybe you're facing a problem that seems like a mountain. It seems too big. Maybe you're facing a Goliath today in your life. Then you need to realize today, brothers, that God will deliver you, that God will rescue you, that God will give you the victory. But we just have to have the faith to believe. We just have to come against our problems in the name of the Lord and remember, just like David was brought and rescued from the bear and the lion, God rescues us. We've been in situations before. God has delivered us. God has rescued us. And God will always rescue his people. He will always be there for his people. But we just need to trust in God. Have on the armour of God. And come against our problems in the name of the Lord. Knowing that, you know, it's just another Goliath which God has already defeated. God has already defeated Goliath, and we get them in our lives. But just be reminded of how God has already brought you through storms and things within your life and giants within your life in the past that he will bring you through them again. That's what he was reminding David. It's just another giant. It's just another situation. But the battle belongs to me. And you know, brothers, we need to remember that this morning. We maybe face that Goliath battle this morning, but we need to remember this, that the battle belongs to the Lord. That the battle belongs to him. That we simply have to just believe and put our faith and trust in God and listen to the voice of God. Listen to what God is saying. And today, if that's you today and you're facing that Goliath moment, know that the battle belongs to the Lord. Come against it in the name of the Lord. Give it to God. Allow God to rescue you like he rescued David from Goliath. He rescued David from the bear and the lion. How God rescues his people all the way through the word of the God, and he will do the same for you today. God bless everyone today. Remember, brothers, don't allow your problem to become too big for God. But remember, just like David knew, God was bigger than Goliath. God was bigger than the giant. God was bigger than the problem. The problem when we allow the problem to become bigger than God is we put God in a circumstance where God is limited to what he can do. We make God smaller than the problem, and we know God is bigger than any problem. Whatever we face today, brothers, remember, God is bigger than your Goliath. God bless.